Now, with that said, I think we have left sufficient time, Zamir, if you agree, for the Q&A session. So super happy to now take questions from the audience and start the discussion now.
Thank you very much, Stefano. Alessandra, every time I look at this system and in the webinars, there's something new I see in the booking hub system in general and in UN Mobility, which shows how adaptive the team is and how adaptive the system is with all the new integrations, the technology, the AI and all. So great to see that. Colleagues, the Q&A session is open now. Feel free to raise your questions in the Q&A tab and we'll read it aloud, or raise your hand so that we can unmute or allow your microphone so that you can ask your question directly. And in the meantime, we're going to ask the panelists some of the questions that we have received or common questions that we have for the interests of all colleagues. And maybe we can start, Stefano and Alessandra, with that very famous basically question that we always get for every service, is that how a new OMT or a new agency can utilize the service? What is the process? What is the governance structure? Is there any agreement needed? And as you respond to that one, maybe if you know from the back of your mind, I already shared the link in the chat to the GS dashboard, but maybe you can also indicate how many agencies have already signed global agreements with UN Mobility, and what does that mean? Which means most likely that their country offices can start using these services. So over to you.
So joining UN Mobility, really we try to keep the entire process as flexible and as easy, as simple as possible. So contractually, there are only two aspects to consider. There is the SLA, which, as I mentioned earlier, can either be signed at global level or local level. We have 21 UN entities that use us today. Most of them, Zamir, today, most of them have global partnerships. So, you know, we have global partnerships with the UNICEF, with the UNHCR, with UNDP, with FAO and so forth. With many, we have global, with UNESCO, with UNOPS. With some, we still have local partnerships. I'm thinking, for example, you know, with UN Women, UNFPA or IOM. We're still gradually building up the relationship at local level, country by country. But of course, the best way to scale up UN system mobility is to go through global agreements. And for that, of course, if you have a global agreement, reach to us, and the onboarding will be very simple. And in fact, we would hope that by now you would already be using the solution. But if not, we would take care with the team. We would take care of the onboarding process. Now they've done it, as I said earlier, in more than 1,000 office locations in 115 countries. So they make this onboarding process very smooth. So this is to join us and start using the solution. Of course, if there is no global agreement in place, we are happy to offer a 1-month free trial. So you have nothing to lose. We come to you, we set UN Mobility up. You can use it for a month, and hopefully at the end of that trial, you would like to continue to use it and sign the SLA and continue. So this is for the use of UN Mobility. Now, when it comes to carpooling is rolled out at country level. So the carpooling service agreement is signed by participants at country level. This is why we as UN Mobility are present in 115 countries. Carpooling to date, we are present in 53 countries. What this means that in 53 countries, agencies have decided to operate with this interagency initiative. Again, the governance is simple, meaning that in any country, as long as there are two agencies that are happy to support each other with passenger transportation, they can sign the carpooling service agreement, which also regulates the trip rates for that particular country, and off they go. And then other agencies can join and sign the same agreement when they're ready. So it's one agreement, carpooling service agreement for that country, and underneath you have all the signatures of all the participants. We have cases where and it's distributed at OMT level. So we have cases where we get 12 signatures all at once, other cases where we start with 2 or 3 and we grow from that. So this is the governance very quickly. The one thing I would say is do reach out to us. I provided the email address, and we're happy to discuss with you bilaterally and really show how simple it is to get on board. And I must say, this simplicity has allowed this rapid scale up to date.
Thank you, Stefano, and colleagues can attest. You write to this team, they respond to you, and they will be available to support you in your OMT retreats and any kind of engagement where you see the need for this team to come in and basically clarify any questions or shed more light about the service. So Stefano and Alessandra, you decide which one you want to take. This next question is about integration of the UN mobility with other existing fleet management systems. I mean, just in case if a country office or an agency within an OMT already have an existing fleet management system in place at the country level, is there a way to integrate that or utilize the data from that and then scale it with the UN mobility or not? That's one. And maybe I can throw one more question that's relevant to this, is that for the entities or for the country offices or agencies that are already using the mobility or are in early stages of using the mobility service, is there any kind of incentives more than the 1 month free service that you are providing? Over to you. Please unmute yourself before.
Yep. Okay, I'll take maybe even both, or maybe then the second one I let Stefano comment on it. But we say, first of all, benefits are very much straightforward, colleagues. And so after using the service for a month, you immediately see the difference between a manual management to a fully digitalized management. It's not only the platform, but it's also the data that comes with it, you know, the agreements that we have for the carpooling, for example, to be offered to the other agencies, the business modeling to offer carpooling and so on. So it's an entire system that we give to agencies. And so we feel like 1 month of free trial is already giving quite a lot of visibility on understanding on the benefits that this solution is providing. We can also put anybody who's interested in contact with the other agencies at the local level or also international level that are already using it, so that they can hear real life, you know, experiences with that. And so we feel like, you know, there is enough of potential to actually understand the real benefit of the platform in a month. By the way, the month is actually a month of operations, but right before we have webinars to people, which we explain to fleet managers, to drivers, what they need to do and so on. So the actual time for, you know, entities to understand how the service works is actually by definition longer than a month. And therefore that has been proven, you know, sufficient time for people to understand. But I leave this to Stefano to, you know, comment on this one. On the possibility of the service to be connected to other, you know, fleet management services. First of all, we need to say that the way in which we actually direct investments on new activities is really to look at the which features are benefiting the most of entities. And right now, the objective of our solution is to actually roll out globally to become really the UN solution for mobility, ride sharing, carpooling, and also fleet optimization. So in this moment in time, our major target is actually all the OMTs or the UNCTs and agencies at the local level that want to start using the solution to digitalize their operations, again, to get a much higher accountability, automated and quantitative accountability of the service provision, you know, and to start understanding how to optimize the solution. We are also heavily investing. We started heavily investing already in 2025. You know, as Stefano was saying, the results we already see now with the AI. So we are going to radically innovate the service delivery in the next, let's say, 12 months through the use of new technologies. And so, for example, already the AI chat, power chat for the first level of assistance is proving to be like a very, let's say, visionary tool to provide first level of support to everybody, which is immediate and provides support to the major requests. We are also, heavily invested in the AI tool to optimize the way in which mobility is used. So imagine using like computer scale to tell us, looking at the mobility of a country office or a location, and like supporting with device on how to increase ride sharing, increase carpooling, or even right sizing right profiling, sorry. So we are heavily looking at investing in those areas which are going to benefit the majority of the people using the platform. So we are in general open to specific requests from clients, but they need to be taken into consideration on the entire development of innovation plans that we have. We listen to requests from all global operations, as you have seen, and partners which are already using the service. And therefore, our major, let's say, objective is to create a global shared service which fits all and not specifically one single entity or location. So this is why we are more interested in this time to develop features which are broadly to be expanded rather than investing in connecting specific agencies' systems, even if it's not something that we are completely we are not against it, and it's something that at maturity we will develop more time to do it. But we think now it's time to actually grasp much higher benefits which are coming from the use of new technologies and the way in which they look at our operations and can give us support on what we do. And we are interested in setting up carpooling activities everywhere in countries where we are not yet ready to enroll new agencies and new entities at the local level. So our also both technical and change management capacity is really taken by this major mission, which is really to scale up to the largest number of locations and agencies everywhere. Stefan, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, absolutely. This is, and also on the first part, I think, Alessandra, you answered it fully on the 1 month free trial, which we provide. And it's really the ample time for a location to really understand the benefits that it can receive from the use of the platform. And as I said earlier, the methodology that we use and that we've now also propose to our partners to use as an established methodology in determining the efficiency gains. So these are real gains that the real benefits that one derives from using the platform. So we are hoping that through a 1 month free trial of the solution, you can really grasp the potential that it has to offer any operation.
Thank you, Alessandra and Stefano. Let me move with the other set of questions. I'm combining 3 actually in here. One is about the UN mobility support to smaller agencies, particularly those operating in remote and underserved areas, like complex settings likely or remote locations. How UN mobility support those agencies? And as you respond to that, a question came up, Stefano, and it's interesting actually, is that what is the difference between carpooling and mobility? You talk about mobility and then you talk about carpooling. Maybe you can clarify that as well as you would be responding about the smaller agencies. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. You can hear me okay? Okay. I can hear my echo, but not to worry. Smaller. 1 second. Okay. So smaller agencies, remote locations, we as a solution, we can operate anywhere there is a fleet, of course, and we come there with a digital solution. We're a global shared service. We have this central solution that can be used anywhere in the world, of course. However, the great advantage of using our solution in remote areas, particularly where there are smaller agencies, is that we facilitate carpooling, and we see that carpooling, the appetite for carpooling is really present in those remote areas, in those areas where there are several smaller agencies and maybe one large or two large ones. That's where the field really has an appetite for carpooling, and that's where this one UN way of working can really support the UN system. So I've seen it myself. I go to capitals, but then I go to sub-offices, and I see that this is the place where there is this real need for agencies to support each other, and where I speak to the smaller entities and they say, you know, this for us is a blessing, because all of a sudden through your solution, we can request carpooling services for maybe the only large entity present in this remote location. So absolutely, here we're bringing a huge benefit to the UN system by facilitating carpooling in these remote areas. And then you asking about the difference about carpooling, ride sharing, mobility. Yes, this is I fully understand that this, you know, that even the terminology is relatively new in our industry. In our language, in the way we use the language, by ride sharing, we mean that we are sharing the ride, meaning if 3 or 4 of us need to go to the airport at the same time, then it's better that we all jump into the same vehicle and we save 2 or 3 trips. So only one car gets to go to the airport. This is what we define as ride sharing. We're sharing the ride. Interagency carpooling, in our terminology, is when one agency provides the service to the passenger of another agency. So vehicle and driver from agency A, passenger from agency B, and it can even be a single passenger. Of course, once you do interagency carpooling and you're opening up the service between a number of agencies, chances of doing ride sharing increase, because if we know that the vehicle needs to go to the airport and all of a sudden I have not only staff from my agencies to choose from, but also passenger from other agencies to choose from, chances that I can fill up that car increase. And so I increase ride sharing. And so carpooling makes ride sharing even more optimal. Of course, as I was saying at the beginning, the next step is to then create the shuttle service. Because if we see that in a particular location, a number of agencies have to go to the same camp or to the same destination on a particular day every week, then through the solution, we can set up this shuttle service, facilitating this service, and therefore really maximizing in that particular location ride sharing. Whilst maybe what you were referring to as mobility is what we call internal delivery, which is simply I adopt, as let's say I am UNICEF Nigeria Abuja, I adopt UN Mobility, and in that location I start using the digital solution to manage the transportation of my own UNICEF passengers with my own UNICEF vehicles and drivers. So that's we call internal delivery or mobility. And then there is the ride sharing and carpooling, as I've just defined. Hope that clarifies.
It does, and very clear. Thank you, Stefano, and I hope that's clear for the colleagues as well. As a follow-up to this, maybe you can clarify, I know the answer, but do an agency need to sign an agreement for UN Mobility simply to use services of the other agency that is the provider of the, let's say, the ride sharing? Or in simple terms, if I'm agency X and we don't have an agreement with the...
Sorry, Zamir,
you can hear us?
We did not hear part of your question. Can you repeat for us, please?
Okay, no problem, no problem. So it's a follow-up to the point that we have about the carpooling and ride sharing for an agency to use the services of the other agency. Let's say agency X has an agreement with you. They're using the UN Mobility. They have their vehicles on carpooling arrangement. Agency Y staff would like to utilize the service. Do they need to have an agreement with UN Mobility, or they can simply use the service of that provider and be invoiced and be billed and pay for the cost recovery? And as you respond to that one, maybe you can also clarify how the cost recovery is managed across the participating agencies based on your experience.
Sure, no, good question, because it allows me to explain how carpooling works. So carpooling is operationalized at country level. So in a particular country, 2 or more agencies decide to participate in carpooling. So what they're saying is that we sign this document, which has some common rates. This is very key, and it partly answers second part of your question. It has some common trip cost recovery rates, which are reciprocal. We all use the same rates to charge each other for the transportation services. So carpooling happens at country level. Agencies that wish to participate sign. Let's say we have 4 or 5 agencies participating. As a signatory of the carpooling service agreement, you can be a provider, a recipient, or both of the service, meaning that if at times I have spare capacity, I can utilize that spare capacity to provide services to others. And in so doing, I cost recover, all, of course, in adherence to the principle of full cost recovery. Okay, so I cost recover. And by cost recovering, I am in part paying for my fixed cost that I would have anyway, because, you know, I would have to pay for my driver, my leasing of the vehicle anyway. But instead, I'm using that spare capacity to supply a service to another agency. If I am the, also I can be a recipient, so I can be a provider, but at times, even if I'm a large agency with a large fleet, there could be times when I need to receive transportation services. So I can also be a recipient. When I receive the service, I only pay on demand for the trip received. And this is based, the trip cost recovery model is based on distance and duration. So we looked, when we did the trip cost recovery model, we looked at all the costs associated with transporting a passenger from A to B. And now we have this distance multiplier and duration multiplier. And therefore the system, and it calculates it, you know, it's all done automatically to the solution through the mobile app of the driver. The system calculates the distance and duration and calculates the cost. And this is the cost, again, on full cost recovery principle, that agency A that is providing the service charges to agency B. And the good thing of doing all of this automatically through this digital solution is that, as I showed you earlier, if I am the provider, I can also send you an automatic invoice. So the governance is flexible. I can be a provider, I can be a recipient, or I can be both. And the other important thing about the governance of carpooling, and this has been really key for us to expand, is that nothing is mandatory. So when you join carpooling and you decide in a specific country to sign and say, I'd like to participate in this initiative, you are not saying that you have to provide services if someone asks. It's done on a best effort basis as a one UN initiative. So if I happen to have spare capacity, I transport passenger from another agency. Otherwise, it is not mandatory. I don't have to. And when operations hear this, they are reassured. And this is why we have managed to really scale up carpooling in so many countries. So this is how carpooling works, and this is how we pay each other for the services that we receive. And the fact that the rates are reciprocal is also something that makes the system very transparent, because people know that we're charging at cost. So it would not be possible to find the same service if we're comparing like for a cheaper cost. Of course, you could go cheaper with Uber or a taxi private company, but then you're not comparing like for like. But if you want a UN standard service of transportation, nothing could be cheaper, because we charge through the trip cost recovery at cost. And it's transparent because the rates I would use to transport you are the same rates that you would use to transport me. So this transparency and simplicity of costing model has also enabled us to grow quickly.
So what are the practical steps for the OMTs and UNCTs to start using UN Mobility, and how long does the onboarding process normally takes? And maybe you can also kind of like link it to the part that if an OMT or a particular agency wishes to utilize the services of the booking hub, what kind of training, change management, and support will be provided to their staff, as well as to their fleet managers during the rollout in the new locations. Over to you, please.
Yes, I'm happy to take this question, Zamir. Thank you. Gives me a chance to clarify the contractual framework of UN system mobility, which is very flexible and straightforward. And this is why we've managed to scale up so rapidly. So anyone who is interested in using us can sign an SLA. This can be done at global level or local level. Now, most of our partners use us through global agreements, which of course is the most efficient way for that particular entity to scale up and roll out the solution throughout the globe for their operations. But of course, we do have some partners that at the moment have local agreements with us. So it's an SLA that regulates the use of the UN system mobility solution. The second contractual element is the carpooling service agreement. This element here is only signed at country level. This is because carpooling, of course, is regulated country by country, because in this document, for example, we specify the trip cost recovery rates, and these are country specific because, of course, the driver cost or the fuel cost changes country by country. Now, these are the two simple documents that are linked to the use of our solution. When it comes to the carpooling service agreement that is signed at OMT level, the other thing that has made progression that has made scale up very simple is that we don't need in a particular country all agencies to sign at the same time. What we need in one country is for two agencies to decide that they want to join the initiative to support each other. And so if they sign the agreement, then we can, let's say, declare carpooling launched in that particular country, and other agencies can join and sign the same agreement when ready. So we've had occasions where, for example, in one OMT, going from memory, in Nigeria, for example, we had 10 or 11 agencies that they all signed at the same time, or in other countries it was 2 or 3 at the beginning, but then others followed very quickly, especially when they started seeing that the initial participants were supporting each other. So the process of, let's say, our interaction with the OMT is very straightforward and now consolidated, because I think we've presented to, I want to say, maybe close, it must be in the hundreds now, the number of OMT presentations that we have given, and also some UNCT presentations. And we present the opportunity, and then the team, of course, engage with the OMT that can in that particular country, and the interested agencies can then receive the appropriate training and then the appropriate onboarding. And as I was saying earlier, if there is no, for a particular agency, if there is no global agreement in place, we offer this 1 month free trial. So it's a very simple, flexible, and smooth process that has allowed the scale up. I think, this should be sufficient maybe at this stage, but we're always happy to be reached bilaterally to start the conversation, either with a single entity or a single location, or at OMT level.
Thank you, Stefano. Very clear.
Zamir, maybe Zamir, one final thing I want to say, and I know that you were involved. The last OMT that we were engaged with was India, and we thank you for putting us in touch with the India OMT. And I think you saw how let's say lean the process is of us moving forward with the OMT or with the single interested parties.
Thank you, Stefano. Indeed, it has been an amazing engagement with OMT in India, and we look forward to the fruitful collaborations there. I see that we have a hand up, and we'll come back to that one. But in the meantime, I see a very good question raised by David Joy, who is one of our great reform contributors and supporters in Saudi Arabia. David is the head of the resident coordinator office there, asking a very practical question from the perspective of not small countries with small UN presence or a limited number of vehicles. I know, Alessandra, you already responded to this question in the chat, but maybe in the interest of colleagues that are hearing this, it would be good to recap that one more time. So David's main point is that in countries where the UN has limited presence and limited fleet, and there is like a lot of demand in terms of the utilization of the vehicles, particularly for the incoming missions. How flexible is the UN System Booking Hub UN Mobility tool for ad hoc users, the mission participants, or like entities that may require the vehicles once in a while? And maybe I can also connect this to the next question, which is on the cost recovery part of this. So let's say ad hoc missions or entities use the services of the UN Booking Hub. How is the cost recovery managed across participating agencies, and how is the pricing model ensure that it's fair and transparent? And what we these days are all worried about is that we're not overcharged. Over to you, Alessandra.
Yes, I will answer to the first part and then let you, Stefano, come in for the second. Yes, as I wrote to, and then I was told that I was supposed to answer 2 questions at the end. So, but yes, the entire UN Booking Hub, so not only UN Mobility, is actually a tool that is catalyzing interagency collaboration. So in every service lines, not just mobility. So we're talking about accommodation, facilities, even HUNAS, I mean, everywhere in our solutions. The idea is that the connecting demand and offer. And so the idea is exactly that one, to make sure that agencies that have spare capacity in vehicles can offer it to other agencies that might be in need. And by the way, even sometimes large agencies might need the capacity from smaller fleets of other entities because of maybe a peak of need or of use. So the idea is that to create that, exactly that, let's say, culture of sharing assets among entities and working as one. So absolutely, this is the platform where we have been having all of the conversation at the OMT level and at the even UNCT's levels, where collaboration can happen because agencies are asking for the large fleet ones to take care of their mobility needs. So conversation can be started at the country office level, at the country level, and they can be they need to serve spot and on-demand requests from agencies on support from those who have larger fleets. And so this is where the fleet optimization also comes in, and this is what we are starting, and we are focusing a lot our efforts in the last month on the fleet optimizations. So where agencies have large fleet, can they use it to increase ride sharing? Can they use it to increase carpooling? Or if not, maybe they could right size or even right profile and right size their fleet. So there are options that might be taken depending on the local context. So as much as agencies want to use the service from other large ones, that's exactly, this platform is exactly the one where we should all collaborate to try and exchange these services. Now over to Stefano for the second part of the question.
Stefano, my apologies. I had muted you as there was some background noise. Maybe you can unmute.
No worries. Okay. So thank you, Alessandra. Yes, moving on to the second part of the question, which is on pricing and, let's say, the fairness of pricing when it comes to interagency carpooling. We operate on the full cost recovery principle. So when we developed the global trip cost recovery model that determines the 2 rates to charge carpooling trips, we simply looked at the cost associated to transport a passenger from A to B. So there are no other costs, but just those that are duration-based and distance-based costs. So maintenance and fuel, or the leasing of the vehicle, the driver, etc., etc. But we looked at all the costs associated with transporting a passenger from A to B, and using the full cost recovery principle. And then we came up with these 2 global multipliers, which we then adjust country by country, with these adjustments made on fuel and the cost of the driver. And so when we come up with these 2 multipliers, they're inserted in the carpooling service agreement. Now, the key thing here is that when participants at OMT level sign this carpooling service agreement to help each other, what they're saying is that they're using common reciprocal rates. So if today I'm offering a service to you, I will be using this rate, but if tomorrow I'll be receiving the same service from you, you will be using the same rate. So this complete transparency and the fact that it's a reciprocal system based on the principle of full cost recovery really has given us that ability to move fast and scale up rapid. And this is why, as I was saying earlier, more than 300 local UN entities have signed this agreement and are happy to participate, given the fairness of the pricing of the carpooling agreement. So this is very, very important. We've noticed that this was a key element, this transparency here was a key element for scale up on carpooling. I see that the team, I'm not looking at the chat, but I see that Eva is managing the chat in the background. But if there is anything, that can be mentioned to me, I'm happy to take straight away.
Sure, thank you, Stefano. But for now, let's go to the audience, and I can see Victor Sheki has his hand up from UNDP. Victor, you have your mic and camera activated. Please feel free to raise your question directly. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm Victor from UNDP. I'm operations analyst in Malawi. First, let me mention that I think for Malawi, we've been very much interested in the UN mobility idea. And last year, around October, November, we asked a member from the UN mobility team, and that was, I think, Giada, who came and made a presentation to us, to the OMT. And many agencies were indeed very much interested, and we made a recommendation through to the UNCT to consider adopting this so we could operationalize it in Malawi. Up to this far, the UNCT has given us the blessings and asked at the OMT level if we can now come up with step by step, like practical steps as to what it takes for us to operationalize this. However, maybe that's where we've kind of been challenged, despite getting the buy-in from many of the agencies to participate. But I think we've not been able to bring it on the table in terms of what does it take really for us to take off. Yeah. And I think on this, I'm going to touch base bilaterally just so that we can get the practical guidance in terms of the step-by-step process for us to get this started. There have been a number of questions, maybe with also the change of staff in other agencies, where some of the operation managers who expressed interest have moved on, and then we've got new people in the agencies. And some of them is the first time that they are hearing about this concept. And they've been asking questions, some of which now we cannot ably attend to. But maybe may need experts from the UN mobility team to be able to support. There have been questions around the course, like what does it take? We talk of the pilot, yeah, the 1 month pilot service. But after that 1 month, what course will be required? Are we going to have someone come in country to provide support on a day-to-day basis as someone who will be managing the service from our end, or we will be supported remotely? In terms of the course again, do we have, or can we present business cases where or scenarios where we can indeed demonstrate of the cost savings that agencies are able to realize by using this. But at the same time, I'm also interested in whether you would know at this level, if among the countries that have adopted the UN mobility, do we have countries that have built this into their BOS, for example, as one of the common service lines with demonstrable cost savings that have been realized over time. But beyond that, I'm going to reach out directly so that I can get that guidance in terms of the step-by-step guidance to get this done. But we already have the go-ahead from the UNCT, and the OMT is very much interested, also in line with the current UN reforms and the restructuring at UN agencies, which I think I've seen a number of agencies scaling down and others having a bigger fleet than what they actually need. And this means that there is no more optimization of the fleet. You've got other agencies that are small, they need the service, but because we don't have a framework in place, it becomes difficult for them to reach out because then they're not clear in terms of the charges and what have you. So I must say that from the Malawi side, we are very much interested. We will reach out bilaterally, and we already have the go-ahead from the UNCT, and the OMT has already expressed interest in getting this operationalized. Thank you very much.
Victor, if I may, I know you would like to reach out bilaterally, and of course, we're super happy to take this conversation with you bilaterally. But first of all, I want to thank you for for your contribution during this webinar. And of course, great to hear that Malawi at UNCT level and OMT level, we've got the backing and we've got the buy-in. So from our end, we are going to reach out and support you to make sure that we now operationalize everything that needs to be operationalized. Just an important point that I would like to mention, the efficiency gains that I showed earlier, when an operation joins us and we now have established data through a number of years, data that has been also reported at ECOSOC level, we see that for every dollar that is invested in using UN system mobility, so what you're getting out in terms of efficiencies through process automation or time savings, increased ride sharing or carpooling, we see that for every dollar invested, you can get more than 5 times or 10 times. This is the kind of ratio we're seeing in terms of efficiency gain. So really, it's money well spent. It's an investment really worth doing. So for agencies that may be asking about the annual subscription fee, which we have a flat annual fee, which is very simple. This was another reason that allowed us to scale up so quickly globally, that the simplicity of our annual subscription fee that was very, very clear to operations wanting to use us. And as I said, for every dollar invested in this annual subscription fee, you are getting more than 5 or 10 times back the amount through efficiency gains. And then maybe one last thing I'd like to mention here, and then of course we take this conversation forward bilaterally, is you mentioned the BOSS or the CBO. Of course, these are collaborative efforts through the common back office or through the BOSS. For us, even at the beginning, I remember we used them as enablers of UN system mobility. So whenever agencies are talking to each other for the CBO, for the BOSS, this for us is a catalyzer. It helps us push forward our project. Of course, we are a global shared service, which means that, and also going back to what you were saying, we provide the support centrally as a global shared service, but we do so with the team in so many countries now that the customer support is being appreciated by all our users. This is why we also run that customer satisfaction survey. So we are, however, a global shared service. In fact, one of the very first global shared services, which means that the efficiencies are reported as a GSS. But yes, BOSS and CBO definitely, they enable us, they can speed up the adoption of UN system mobility. But thank you, Victor. Thank you. And I look forward to engaging directly with you and the rest of the team to push things forward in Malawi.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. And thank you, Victor. We are 4 minutes out for the end of the session. Maybe I can raise 3 other questions and then we go to Mohammed, who has raised his hand. So Alessandra and Stefano, there are 3 questions. One is about the governance of the UN Mobility and Booking Hub at the country level. Maybe you can shed some light on that one. But as you do that, I'm also going to mention 2 more points from the colleagues that raised in the chat. One is that for entities that have their own facility management system or booking systems, apparently in certain locations, they are not able to use the carpooling solution without paying for full package. I mean, maybe you can clarify if there is a possibility for entities to only use the carpooling function of the system with a reduced price or however the costing model is. And also there's another point which is really important from the manager's perspective to see basically the efficiencies that the UN System Booking Hub and UN Mobility is creating for carpooling and drivers management and vehicles management. Apparently, the colleague is indicating that currently the dashboard has visibility only to the drivers and the admin officers, or let's say the back-end managers. But is there opportunity already in place or will be in place for the rest of the managers in the OMT or in the UNCT to be able to have some sort of like a view-only access to see what kind of efficiencies has been created over time by using the UN Mobility platform? Over to you, and then we go for one last question from Mohammed, who has his hand raised.
Maybe I take the question from Frederick, ciao Frederick, by the way, that was posted in the chat. I was going to answer, but then I thought we would discuss it here. Yeah, we are currently very much focused on making sure that our system is actually developing a system which is end-to-end. There is such an untapped opportunity for country offices that that have fleets, available fleets with vehicles which are sitting there doing nothing, and agencies which are in need of getting those fleets. They were fully committed into working into this model right now. And now, as you have seen from Stefano's presentation, we are very much into the plugging in AI tools to make sure that now we leverage on the our process and our the data that's provided by the system. So we are looking into try and see if we can inject and support operations to automatically boost ride sharing, carpooling, and then we said the fleet optimization. So for the time being also, we also believe that as the call of the General Secretary to consolidation of global shared services, the UN should also pose a question to itself about what do we want to do in terms of mobility. And we are strongly a believer that the more we collaborate on the same service and platform, and the better it is, because then this is where we can maximize the sharing of unused assets, and that is where also we can maximize the data for us to come up with innovative ideas. So, for example, having AI running on our, our daily operation and suggesting us how to best utilize the service is going to be something that you can do only if you are on the same platform. So, for the time being, let me say we are fully focused on that business model and on rolling it out wherever there is an opportunity for us to move forward. That we will look at a different business model in a secondary phase. Okay, so that's the answer to Frederick's question. I don't remember the second part of the question. Maybe Stefano, over to you.
No, I think maybe we can briefly touch on the dashboard issue, which I think was also posted on the chat. If I understand the question correctly, at the moment we're saying that only drivers or fleet managers can see the dashboard, and it would help if management could see the dashboards. Now, if I understand the question correctly, we can provide access at country level, of course, because this is how the system, the solution operates. So at country level or at location level, not just the drivers or not just the fleet managers can have access to the data. And you were seeing during the demo that there are reports, there's a number of reports, where we also have the efficiency gains being measured and reported on those dashboards. And you can provide the names of those admin officers or anyone else that you would like to be given access, and they can have access to that data. This is what I was saying at the beginning. The power of the solution is that it's a digital solution that provides these KPIs to make informed decisions. And this is why earlier I was also showing you those reports with the pie charts and so forth. So we want data to be used. This is our modus operandi. We want a UN system that is basing its information on data. So the access can be expanded on the reports that you have seen, so that it's not just the drivers, or in the case of the chat, what is being chatted there, of the fleet managers that can see the report. I don't know if there was anything else on this, because I think, Ale, you've answered the first part completely on the other points.
Thank you, no problem. There was also like a point about the governance of the system at the country level, but maybe you can cover that.
Can you elaborate on
to the?
Is this on the chat? Is this on the chat? Sorry. At the country level,
Stefano, maybe
the governance for us, if it's a general question about governance, it's very simple. If it's related to carpooling, it's also very simple and flexible, meaning that in any country, operations can use UN system mobility. So if there is a global agreement, they reach out to us and we onboard them, we train them, and off they go. If not, we give them the opportunity to do a free trial, and then they can look at signing the SLA. And they can start following the trial. If they like the solution, they can start using it. And at country level, we can have, there are countries where we have 10 plus UN entities using UN system mobility to run internal delivery operations, meaning they use us to run their own vehicles and drivers for their own passengers. So it's a very, very simple agreement that we have with those agencies that wish to use us in that sense. Then the governance, if they want to engage, if they contemplate joining carpooling, then all they have to do is really, as I was saying, it's joining carpooling in that particular country. And carpooling is made simple in the sense that as long as there are two agencies in any country that are willing to start carpooling, meaning they are willing to support each other through transportation, then they sign the carpooling service agreement. Of course, the carpooling service agreement is distributed at OMT level and discussions happen at OMT level. But we do not have to wait for everyone to be convinced that interagency carpooling makes sense and sign the agreement. We can just have two, and then off we go. And really, experience has shown that in countries where we start with only two agencies, very soon a third and a fourth join. Now we are seeing more and more, given this increased demand to maximize efficiencies right now, given the financial landscape, we are seeing that UNCT and OMT are really pushing to make sure that we have as many entities signing right away. And so this is why we're seeing new OMT carpooling operations starting with 10, let's say, signatories of the agreement. And then the governance between them is regulated by the carpooling service agreement. They all share this common trip cost recovery rates, which is the key element, of course, because it's the one thing that regulates how money exchanges hands. But then, of course, insurance is regulated through the carpooling service agreement, and all the other aspects of the transportation service. So simple governance, and now effective enough to have been scaled up in so many countries with so many entities using it. But I had not seen the question, so I'm hoping I'm covering.
No, you covered it very well, Stefano. That's very comprehensive. So I can see that Mohammed's question has also been responded by Eva in the chat. Mohammed, please reach out to the team and UN Mobility team, and they will get back to you with the solution. We are running slightly over time, colleagues. So thank you so much to Alessandra and Stefano for an excellent presentation as usual. And thanks to all colleagues for joining us in today's webinar. And we look forward to see you in our future webinars on behalf of the BIG and DCO GSS team. We thank you all and have a great day. Have a good one.